still seemed unconvinced. Kim, determined, stated that they were definitely going to save Moon's grandmother tomorrow. Moon's face lit up with joy at the thought of being able to see his grandmother soon. However, Han still had doubts and questioned how they were going to manage that with all the obstacles in the way. Kim smiled confidently and answered that they would use a bait strategy to draw out the goblins. After Ko Jun spoke, everyone at the table turned their attention to him, waiting for more details about his plan. Han and the archer girl remained pensive, wondering if the idea could truly work. The boy with glasses voiced his concern, saying the plan would only succeed if everything went exactly as planned. As they deliberated, the system notified Ko Jun, revealing that the mission previously assigned to Fatty had been completed. Along with the notification came a reward of 30,000. Upon reading the message, Ko Jun was surprised. He hadn't realized that payment was given for every completed mission. To be certain, he read the notification again, and it was confirmed. Ko Jun quickly realized that with money, he could assign missions to his citizens, allowing them to level up. In other words, the more money he had, the more power he could accumulate. Closing his eyes, he thought about how, while this seemed like a strong long-term strategy, he hoped not to rely on it too heavily for now. The system also informed Ko Jun that Jun's trust had increased to a total of 50 points, unlocking a new status, loyalty. Since loyalty surpassed 30 points, meeting the minimum requirements, Fatty transitioned from being a simple resident to becoming a vassal. The system displayed Jun's updated stats and attributes. He was now at level 9, with a trust level of 51 points and loyalty at 62. However, he had no awakened skills and 0% shared XP or money. After carefully analyzing the information, Ko Jun decided to register Fatty as his first vassal. As a result, a blue aura began to emanate from Jun, who started feeling sudden changes in his body and broke into a sweat. The system notified that the first vassal registration was successful, unlocking a new skill for Ko Jun called Summon Vassal. This skill allowed Ko Jun to summon the vassal within his house, though it came with a cooldown of 2 hours after use. The system updated Jun's stats again, revealing that he had reached level 20 and gained the title First Servant. Additionally, he awakened his first skill, Gorilla Strength, a Tier SE passive ability that granted him superhuman strength. The system further explained that, thanks to the First Servant title, all XP and gold earned by Fatty through hunting would be shared. Lastly, the system revealed that Ko Jun could use the Ultimate Eyes skill to summon the vassal within a 5-meter radius of his house. Ko Jun noticed a plus symbol beside Jun's level and wondered what it did. Upon pressing it, he discovered it was a feature to increase the vassal's level at the cost of 1 million. Shocked by the exorbitant cost, Ko Jun exclaimed that it was far too expensive for a single vassal skill. Seeing his expression, the woman at the table asked what was wrong. Ko Jun brushed it off, saying it was nothing, and turned his attention back to Jun, asking how he was feeling. The focus shifted to Jun, who stated that his strength was overflowing, his veins visibly pulsing. He asked if this transformation was Ko Jun's doing. Ko Jun confirmed with a nod. Jun, looking at his hands, remarked that it felt as though his body had become 10 years younger. Ko Jun smiled proudly and suggested that Fatty join the rescue mission team. Handing him a bow, Fatty looked confused by the gesture. Ko Jun explained that the mission was assigned because vassals earned double the rewards of regular citizens. In a commanding tone, Ko Jun instructed Fatty to defeat as many monsters as possible. Fatty nodded in agreement, prompting Ko Jun to smile and express his trust in him. Outside the house, on the first floor, the rescue team began their search for survivors. The boy holding a baseball bat questioned whether it was necessary to search the first floor, but Han reminded him that it was Ko Jun's order. The rescue team embarked on their first mission to locate all survivors in the building and lead them to the 30th floor. A crucial part of the mission was to draw out a large number of goblins for elimination while rescuing as many survivors as possible. The boy with the baseball bat acknowledged the plan, and the group pressed forward. Han, shouting to keep the team alert, emphasized that goblins could appear at any moment or from any direction. As they continued their search, They had yet to encounter any survivors or goblins. While guiding the team, Han noticed something unusual. Some members of the group couldn't believe their eyes. Several lifeless bodies were sprawled across the floor, victims of the goblins. The sight filled the team with sorrow and rage, intensifying their hatred for the goblins, but they couldn't afford to stop. Determined, they pushed on to the second floor. On the second floor, the situation was catastrophic. Lifeless bodies lay scattered across the ground, leaving the team horrified. Despite the grim scene, they continued to the third floor. Upon reaching the third floor, everything appeared calm. The team leader knocked on the doors, calling out to see if anyone was inside. The rest of the team followed suit, hoping to find survivors. After several unsuccessful attempts, the team lowered their heads, burdened by a sense of sadness. However, the boy with the baseball bat refused to give up, encouraging the team to press on to the next floor. On the fourth floor, they resumed knocking on doors, announcing themselves as the rescue team. Suddenly, a door creaked open, revealing a man with a tired expression. He asked if they were truly part of the rescue team, mentioning that he was extremely thirsty and begging for water. Han quickly pulled out a bottle and handed it to him. The man, still skeptical, asked again if they were really from the rescue team. Han reassured him, confirming their purpose and explaining that, as a resident of the building, he was helping to lead all survivors to a safe location. The man seemed surprised to hear this. He closed the door momentarily, but reopened it shortly after, revealing two others inside the apartment. Introducing himself as Han Yong-soo, he stated that he would rely on the team. Han introduced himself as well, expressing his hope for good cooperation between them. He then introduced the girls on the team and instructed them to escort Han Yong-soo and his group to the 30th floor before returning to continue the mission. Han Yong-soo hesitated, questioning the safety of the 30th floor and expressing his reluctance to leave. However, he admitted he had been hoping for a rescue and suggested there might even be a helicopter waiting for them. One of the girls clarified that there wasn't a helicopter, but assured them there was hot food and the chance to take a bath. Hearing this, Han Yong-soo's daughter became excited, marveling at the idea of taking a bath even in the midst of the apocalypse. The girl chuckled and confirmed it would be a warm bath. The daughter eagerly turned to her father, urging him to stop hesitating and go with them. Reluctantly, the man gave in to his children's wishes. Shortly afterward, the system notified Ko-jun that the total number of citizens had increased to 40. Along with this, their XP and gold had increased to 90%. Sometime later, it was shown that the mission was a success, and they managed to rescue several people. The elderly and children were taken to Fatty's house, where everyone seemed happy. The younger members stayed in the hallways. Han confidently confirmed that there were now a total of 40 people, with no one missing from the search. Ko-jun thanked everyone for their excellent work. Ko-jun then activated his skill, Absolute Eye, causing his eyes to turn black as he carefully observed every movement his citizens were making. He saw them carrying chairs, working with cables on the stairs, hauling ropes, and even climbing the stairs with a very heavy object. After ending the skill, his eyes returned to normal. Smiling, he told Han it was time to begin Phase 2 of the goblin hunting operation. Now in the hallway, Han, alongside the other team members, called for focus and explained the plan in detail. Everyone listened patiently as Han outlined how they would lure out the goblins hiding in the basement. The mission would begin on the first underground floor, B1. The group would divide into two teams with the goal of attracting and clearing out the goblins on B1. Afterward, they would proceed to B2 to eliminate all the goblins there as well. A boy with glasses raised his hand and asked a question. He wondered what they would do if more goblins appeared than anticipated. He also pointed out that if the goblins counterattack, the bodies on the floor might obstruct their escape. The archer and Han, both confident, assured him they could handle all the goblins on their own, since they now had plenty of arrows, unlike before. The boy with glasses nodded in agreement and said he trusted them. Suddenly, they heard a strange noise. Turning toward the source of the sound, they noticed a small group of 3 goblins ready to attack. Without giving the goblins a chance to make the first move, the archer drew her bow and, with 2 quick shots, struck the heads of 2 goblins. leaving only one alive. Without hesitation, the man with the bat charged forward and, with a single blow, smashed the remaining goblin's head. The three goblins now lay lifeless on the ground. The boy with glasses questioned the man with the bat, asking why he was still using a bat when he had previously said he would need a bow to defeat goblins. The senior admitted they were right and promised to switch when necessary. Meanwhile, the archer pointed to the goblin bodies, noting that they were disappearing shortly after being defeated. The newcomer wondered aloud if this phenomenon was another skill of Ko Jun's. Han declared the mission on that floor complete and announced they would now proceed to B1. The newcomer, still lost in thought, remarked that he had expected Ko Jun to have some solution for dealing with the goblin bodies. The system then alerted the group that the citizens' trust was increasing. The scene shifted to Ko Jun, sitting calmly and opening a bottle as a series of system windows appeared before him. He found the moment quite enjoyable, remarking that it wasn't intentional, but reassuring himself that he was still keeping an eye on everyone. Another notification from the system showed that Moon's trust had reached 50, unlocking the loyalty stat. The loyalty stat had surpassed 30, meeting the conditions for registration. Ko Jun was surprised by how quickly he had achieved these stats, though he noted that the faster this happened, the better it would be in the long run. Sitting on the floor and staring thoughtfully at the system window, Ko Jun reviewed Moon's stats: 55 in trust and an impressive 88 in loyalty, along with other attributes. He was surprised by the 88 loyalty, but remained calm, considering it a positive outcome. With an ironic smile, he pressed a button on the system window, declaring that the time for retention registration was complete. Back in the basement on B1, the entire group was fighting fiercely against the goblins. Suddenly, the newcomer began to emit a blue light similar to what Fatty had done before. Holding his bow Moon, the newcomer was stunned as lightning surrounded him. The other group members were equally shocked, questioning what was happening. Even the goblins seemed confused, unable to see due to the intense glow radiating from Moon. As Moon revealed his red eyes in the darkness, it became clear that the goblins couldn't withstand the brightness emitted by him, leaving them momentarily blinded. Han shouted that he didn't know what was happening, but it was an opportunity they couldn't afford to miss. Part of the group quickly ran to create distance, while others stayed behind to eliminate the goblins using their bows from long range. Both archers displayed deadly accuracy, aiming only for the goblins' heads. The archer, visibly furious, performed a swift maneuver that took down several more goblins. Seeing what had just unfolded, the remaining goblins became enraged and charged forward to attack. Despite the number of goblins they had already killed, their numbers only seemed to increase. While running, the group realized the sheer aggressiveness of their opponents and remarked on how they hadn't expected them to be so relentless. The archer shouted, ordering everyone to retreat to the emergency stairwell, while the man with the baseball bat speculated that all the goblins from the B2 floor had likely converged on their current location. Reaching the emergency stairs, the group ascended frantically without daring to look back. To slow the goblins' advance, Han held the door shut. One of the goblins managed to wedge its hand through the gap and sarcastically asked if Han was holding the door by himself. Hearing this, the boy with glasses and the man with the bat joined Han, pushing against the door to keep it shut. The goblins, however, were slowly forcing the door open. As the group struggled, they admitted it was becoming increasingly difficult to hold it shut due to the overwhelming number of goblins. Suddenly, a voice from behind reassured them of help. It was Fatty, using the gorilla strength ability Ko Jun had granted him earlier. Channeling the ability, Fatty single-handedly held the door, managing to block the goblins' advance. Han asked if he would be okay, and Fatty urged them to hurry up the stairs. Despite his superhuman strength, Fatty was sweating and straining as he held the door with all his might. Focusing intensely, he declared that it was his duty, one he had to fulfill. Finally, Han called out to him, letting him know everyone was safe and urging him to come up the stairs as well. Without hesitation, Fatty turned his back to the door and began running up the stairs. However, midway up, he tripped on a step and fell to the ground just as the goblins were about to catch up to him. Lying on the ground, and almost within the goblin's reach. Fatty shouted at his friends to leave him behind and continue the evacuation. While Han hesitated, trying to decide what to do, someone suddenly and without hesitation rushed down the stairs to help. It was the boy with the baseball bat. With a single powerful swing, he smashed the goblin, threatening Fatty. He called out to Fatty, urging him to hurry, and extended a hand to help. Still on the ground, Fatty tried to crawl closer to his rescuer, but one of the goblins managed to grab his leg. Before he could react, Fatty vanished without a trace, leaving his savior stunned and speechless, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Looking ahead, however, the goblins continued advancing in an unrelenting horde. Suddenly, one of them leaped toward the boy with the bat, but he swung his weapon and struck it down midair. Meanwhile, the other group members provided support with their bows, urging Daiku, the boy with the bat, to move faster. Running in desperation as the goblins closed in, Han and the archer shouted frantically, pleading with him to hurry. Clutching his bat and without looking back, Daiku pushed forward, racing up the stairs. Outside, under a full moon, a gruesome scene unfolds. A monstrous, bear-like creature with glowing red eyes effortlessly devours a goblin, whose agonized screams pierce the night. With every passing second, the creature exudes a sinister aura. Finishing its gruesome meal, its sharp fangs and blazing eyes make it clear that its hunger is far from sated. It growls, declaring its bloodlust once more. From behind the beast, eerie screams echo, a sound that shouldn't exist in the stillness of the night. Turning around, the creature notices that the noise is coming from a massive building behind it. Coincidentally, the top floor of the building is still illuminated. The creature's bloodlust intensifies as it snarls, proclaiming that it will devour everyone inside. Suddenly, Fatty is seen falling from a swirling purple portal. But don't worry, our Fatty didn't die. Instead, he was teleported to safety using Ko Jun's ability. Ko Jun, who had been observing from afar, pulled Fatty out of danger just in time. Fatty lands on the ground in a clumsy hero's pose, feeling relief despite his confusion about what just happened. Ko Jun, standing nearby, remarks, "That was close." Fatty rubs his eyes to make sure he's not imagining things, and sees Ko Jun offering his hand to help him up. Ko Jun explains that, just in case, he had kept an eye on the situation using his absolute eye ability. He's glad to see that the vessel summoning ability worked perfectly. As Fatty tries to stand, he notices a sharp pain in his leg. It's then that he realizes a goblin managed to cut him when it grabbed hold of him earlier. He hadn't even noticed how fast it happened during the brief struggle. Ko Jun immediately asks if Fatty is okay, but Fatty brushes off his concern, insisting that the wound will heal faster than he thinks. Ko Jun, however, notices a shortage of medical supplies in his inventory and mentions that he should register some medicine into the system as well. He asks Fatty not to overexert himself and to wait for a moment. Though confused, Fatty agrees. Inside, Ko Jun searches for medical supplies and finds a first aid kit. Looking at it, he recalls how essential medicine is in situations like this. The sight brings back memories of his childhood with his mother, leaving him momentarily deep in thought. Opening the kit, he discovers it contains far more than he expected. Sitting on the floor, he examines the items and mutters that his inventory has only 40 slots left, but there's still so much to register. After a brief moment, he has an idea. He decides to register the entire kit instead of the individual medicines. The system initiates the registration process, scanning the kit. A system notification pops up confirming that it's a standard first aid kit valued at 77,431. Without hesitation, Ko Jun accepts. Back in the corridor, Ko Jun brings the first aid kit to Fatty, who notices Ko Jun's genuine concern for someone he barely knows. Kneeling down, Ko Jun asks to examine the goblin-inflicted wound. Fatty rolls up his pant leg, revealing a cut near his calf. With a pair of tweezers and a cotton ball in hand, Ko Jun warns, "This might sting a bit. I'm going to disinfect the wound first." Carefully dabbing the cotton onto the cut, Ko Jun works meticulously. Fatty winces in pain, but reassures Ko-jun that he can endure it. The system promptly notifies Ko-jun that Choi Hyang-jun's, Fatty, trust level has increased, along with his loyalty. After partially cleaning the wound, Fatty thanks Ko-jun for his care. Ko-jun, while packing the first aid supplies back into the kit, expresses concern for the others. He stands and instructs Fatty to rest, explaining that he has something important to attend to. Fatty nods and agrees to follow his boss's orders. Ko-jun closes his eyes, focuses, and activates his ultimate eyes ability. His eyes darken as he scans the building, allowing him to see everything happening within. Back at the emergency stairs, Daiku, also known as Toy, the baseball bat wielder, is desperately fleeing from the relentless goblins. The archer, with her impeccable aim, provides support, taking out goblins with perfect headshots that would make anyone envious. Han and the guy with glasses try to help Daiku create distance from the goblins, but shout in frustration that they can only handle one goblin at a time, urging Daiku to run faster. Toy sprints as fast as he can, but the goblins remain undeterred, chasing him with tireless persistence. From behind an improvised barricade, the support team fires arrows dangerously close to Daiku, but every shot lands perfectly on the pursuing goblins. Daiku finally reaches the end of the staircase and, with a leap, crosses the barricade. However, in a moment of carelessness, two goblins manage to jump and lunge at his back, catching him off guard. Instinctively, the rookie Moon charges forward with a shout, determined to protect his comrade. With a single powerful blow from his bow at close range, he takes down the two goblins that had pounced. Moon stands with a serious expression, his eyes glowing blue and filled with determination. Without hesitation, he leaps back into the stairwell, plunging straight into the swarm of goblins. Han is left speechless. Delivering rapid, precise strikes, Moon significantly thins the goblin horde as Han and Toy watch in awe. The rest of the group, witnessing the scene, asks in disbelief if Bango Moon had always been this skilled in combat, remarking that his actions are utterly insane. From afar, Ko-jun observes everything and comments, "The rookie is doing exceptionally well." The system screen appears, displaying Moon's status for reference. His full name is Moon Bango, and he holds the title of second vessel. His confidence level is 55, and his loyalty is 88. He possesses a teleportation ability that consumes mental energy to move within his line of sight. The mental energy cost increases with the number of companions and the distance traveled. With a sly smile and darkened eyes, Ko-jun remarks, "Registering Moon as a vessel was a brilliant decision." Back at the stairwell, goblins are being decimated by Moon, each of his blows striking their heads with deadly accuracy. Han asks Jan, the guy with glasses, if the extension cord is ready. Jan, holding it firmly, replies that it is. Han then checks if the water tank is prepared. The archer and the baseball bat wielder confirm its readiness. Moon, realizing he has to retreat, sprints toward the barricade as Han yells at him to hurry up. With a swift jump, Moon lands safely behind the barricade. For a brief moment, the goblins believe the group has simply fled, but moments later, a massive water tank appears above the barricade. The tank is tipped over, drenching the goblins and flooding the emergency stairwell with water. Initially confused, the goblins think it's merely a stalling tactic. Han shouts, "Now's the perfect opportunity." Jan flips the switch. An electrical surge travels down the now-soaked stairwell through the wires they had previously laid, electrocuting all the goblins pursuing them. Ko-jun's system screen notifies him that he has hunted numerous goblins of varying levels, including some at levels 6 and 7. Another notification pops up confirming that Ko-jun has gained significant XP and earned a total of 334,001, which has been deposited into his account. Additionally, his skill level has increased and a new ability has been unlocked. While using his ultimate eyes ability, Ko-jun suddenly feels a strange pressure. A sharp pain begins to spread through his body, causing him to writhe in agony. Upon closer inspection, a purple wave expands outward from him, covering an increasingly large area. The purple energy travels through the building, the stairwell, the parking lot, and even the goblins chasing his friends. The wave appears to function as a scanning mechanism because Ko Jun's ability screen indicates that hostile entities have been detected. After the scan, the system declares that the hostiles will be eliminated. As the energy wave dissipates, the goblins begin to deform, screaming in agony. In an instant, their bodies explode, vanishing in the blink of an eye. The system notifies Ko Jun once again, confirming that he has defeated numerous goblins, including several at levels 6 and 7. In a dimly lit building, a group of goblins makes its way toward the stairs, their steps loud and chaotic, echoing off the cold walls and highlighting their collective movement. They march with purpose, their numbers creating a symphony of noise that reverberates through the darkened space. Yet, amidst their confident stride, a single gremlin lags behind, his pace faltering as an uneasy sensation washes over him. A shadow looms overhead, stretching out like a dark omen. Curiosity and dread take hold, compelling the gremlin to cautiously glance over his shoulder to identify the source of this foreboding presence. His eyes widen in shock and fear as he beholds a massive, fearsome monster with burning red eyes. The creature releases a guttural roar, its sound slicing through the air and freezing the gremlin in place. For a brief moment, disbelief renders him immobile, but the monster acts without hesitation, lunging forward and clamping its powerful jaws onto the gremlin's shoulder. Pain explodes through him, forcing a scream from deep within his chest. The agonizing cry reaches his companions at the front of the group, who spin around in alarm. They are horrified to see their comrade drenched in blood, struggling against the monstrous beast. The terror of the scene grips them, causing an eruption of screams. Yet the monster remains relentless, lashing out with its massive paw and scattering the goblins like leaves in a storm. One gremlin, determined and courageous, leaps onto the creature's back, wrapping his limbs tightly around it in a desperate attempt to subdue the beast. The others continue their chaotic yet fierce attempts to fend off the monster, though its overwhelming strength pushes them to the brink of defeat. Despite the odds, the gremlin on the beast's back refuses to let go. Driven by sheer resolve, he sinks his teeth into the monster's flesh, drawing a feral howl as the creature's blood sprays into the air. Realizing that their opponent is finally weakening, one goblin charges at the monster's nose while another targets its neck. The coordinated attack crescendos into a brutal onslaught, painting the scene in the creature's crimson blood. In this climactic moment, the system unexpectedly announces that the monster has been granted citizenship. Its body twists and bends backward, signaling its defeat. As silence falls over the aftermath, a remarkable transformation begins. The terrifying beast, which had once towered over the group with an imposing, grotesque form, begins to shift. Its jagged and monstrous features ripple and twist, as though the very fabric of its being is unraveling. The oppressive presence that had so terrified the goblins begins to dissolve, the creature's massive body shrinking and reshaping into something entirely different. Slowly, its horrifying appearance fades away, revealing something unexpected, an incredibly beautiful woman. The transformation is nothing short of miraculous, as the monster's intimidating and grotesque exterior melts into the delicate features of a human woman. She collapses to the cold floor in tense battle, weighing heavily on her fragile body. Tentatively, Jaehyun freezes as if unsure of what to do or how to react. His eyes remain fixed on the woman as, trying to make sense of the events that have just transpired. The system, in its usual mechanical fashion, announces her status with an impersonal tone, confirming that she holds trust level 9. However, the system doesn't stop there. It goes on to reveal that she possesses an extraordinary gift, one that sets her apart from many others in this strange world. Her unique ability is that of Aware Best, a rare power that allows her to transform at will into a fearsome beast, much like the one she had been moments ago. The news is both astonishing and puzzling. The fact that she can change between a fearsome monster and a beautiful woman at will is a game changer. Her ability to transform makes her a force to be reckoned with. But there's more to it than just raw power. Yanju. Though beautiful in her human form despite her A-level ability, she remains at level 33, a detail that both puzzles and impresses him. Additional notifications follow, informing him that Ha Dongyan and Yu Hiren have achieved trust level 50, while Kong Daexu has ascended to level 30. Recognizing the importance of these rankings, Jaehyun swiftly commands the system to register Kong Daexu as a vassal. With this new role secured, the protagonist's body becomes encased in an iron suit as the system bestows upon him the title of Third Servant. Contemplating the responsibilities and implications of vassal registration, he reflects on the diverse abilities among his allies. Choi Hyungjin, for instance, boasts the strength of a gorilla, while Kong Daexu possesses a power akin to iron. Moon Byung-go, despite being only at level 30, has the rare and remarkable ability to teleport. Jaehyun begins to question how awakening ranks are determined. He wonders whether they are assigned randomly, given that Choi, despite his loyalty, is only at C rank, while Daexu holds a B rank at level 31. The inconsistency frustrates him, prompting a desire to uncover the process of rank elevation, as it would offer strategic advantages in registering higher-ranking vassals. Yet complications arise when metahumans are involved. Registering them as vassals could introduce unforeseen difficulties. The system notifies him that metahumans are now permitted to navigate corridors and staircases freely. Seizing the chance to test this update, he places his hand on the elevator panel and watches as it ascends swiftly to level 30. Upon reaching his destination, Daexu contacts Choi, instructing him to bring Yeonju down to the B2 floor. Meanwhile, a group of men stationed on the ground floor monitor the unfolding situation, bewildered by the sudden goblin attack. As they attempt to piece together what triggered the assault, the scene shifts back to the upper floors, where Daexu and his companions engage in a lighthearted discussion about Jaehyun's abilities to provide warm water and food. These resources have become vital, lifting everyone's spirits amid the tense circumstances. Downstairs, Daexu and others assist in cleaning up the area. They reflect on Moon Byung-go's transformation from a quiet, introverted individual to someone more open and engaged after meeting Jaehyun. Jaehyun's formidable abilities have left a profound impact on those around him, earning their admiration and respect. As the group discusses survival tactics, a sobering realization dawns upon them. To endure in this world, they must be chosen by Jaehyun, as his decisions hold the key to their survival, shaping their fate in a world fraught with uncertainty and danger. With this conversation being held, the elevator opens and Daexu runs to help others in the basement. A flashback is revealed, showing a small toy car. A child was playing with it in a park, his laughter echoing as he ran around with joy. He called out to his mother, excitedly asking her to watch what he could do. The woman from the parking lot, Yeonju, was his mother. She smiled at him genuinely, encouraging him with warmth in her eyes. As the child stood up and waved to his mother, something sinister appeared behind him. The genuine smile on Yeonju's face twisted into an expression of pure horror. She froze, overcome with terror. A group of 3 vile goblins surrounded the poor boy, who was still innocently waving at his mother. She tried to act, summoning all the strength she had, but she wasn't fast enough. The goblins attacked the boy, and all she could do was watch in helpless despair. His agonized screams pierced the air. Yeonju's legs gave out as she collapsed to the ground, weeping uncontrollably. The sight of her son's final moments burned into her memory, haunting her endlessly. When the chaos subsided, all that remained was the toy car he had been playing with, lying abandoned on the ground. Suddenly, Yeonju woke up from the nightmare, her body trembling as painful memories flooded back. She looked to her side and saw Seo Jun, who softly called her by name. He watched her with concern as she sat up on the bed, clutching her head, which throbbed with lingering pain. Seo Jun extended his hand toward her. "It's a pleasure to meet you," he introduced himself calmly. Ignoring his introduction, Yeonju's gaze hardened. "Was it you?" she asked, her voice filled with urgency. Surprised, Seo Jun hesitated, unsure of what she meant. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously. Yinju's eyes narrowed. "You know exactly what I mean," she clarified. "The thing that made the goblins' heads explode was that you." Seo Jun froze for a moment, his hand beginning to tremble. Gripping his hand tightly to steady himself, he took a deep breath and admitted yes. "It was me." Yinju stared at him in awe, her mind racing. How powerful is this man? She wondered. Someone with such a calm, neutral expression had wiped out an entire horde of goblins in mere seconds. Fear mingled with hope in her heart. If he could do something so incredible, maybe... Her thoughts spiraled, and suddenly she began trembling. Finally, with tears streaming down her face, she dropped to her knees and begged him. "Please save my child," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Just one day. Give me just one day to bring him back." Through her tears, she cried out desperately. "I miss him so much. My beloved son." Seo Jun clenched his jaw, anger boiling inside him as he realized the full extent of her pain. Her child had been taken from her by those wretched goblins. The grief and despair in her voice tore at his heart. Yinju sobbed uncontrollably, trembling so hard that her words became incoherent. Seo Jun stood there, frozen in thought. Is there truly nothing I can do? He wondered, the frustration gnawing at him. Then, an idea struck him. He accessed the system interface and issued a mission. Hunt down 1,000 goblins. There would be no time limit and no penalty for failure. The reward? The resurrection of her child. As the system processed his request, Seo Jun waited anxiously. But then, a notification popped up. Mission cannot be issued. Insufficient resources for resurrection. His heart sank. Resurrection was beyond his current capabilities. Even with all his powers, he still wasn't strong enough. Another notification appeared, explaining that resurrection required an immense amount of power and resources. Furthermore, his current funds were insufficient to cover the mission's reward. Seo Jun's jaw dropped in disbelief. "Funds," he muttered. "Is resurrection truly possible if I have enough money?" Overwhelmed with excitement, he shouted at the system, demanding confirmation. "Are you telling me I could bring someone back to life if I have the funds?" Returning to the room, he saw Yinju still crying, her face buried in her hands. He realized he had no idea how much it would cost to resurrect someone, nor could he even begin to guess. But knowing that the possibility existed, he decided to act. "Yinju," he called out softly. She looked up, wiping her tear-filled eyes with trembling hands. "I think I might be able to help you," Seo Jun said, his voice steady and serious. Her eyes widened with a glimmer of hope. "Is that really true?" she whispered, clutching the bed sheet tightly. "You're not lying to me? This isn't some cruel joke." Seo Jun knelt before her, meeting her gaze. "I would never joke about something so serious," he reassured her. "But it's not something I can do right now. It will take time, I don't know how long. But there is definitely a way." Relief washed over Yinju's face, though tears still streamed down her cheeks. "I'll do whatever it takes," she vowed. "Tell me what I need to do to make it happen." Seo Jun considered the situation carefully. With Han's group, including Moon, Toy, and Fatty, they already have a strong team. Adding Yinju, a level 33 fighter, would make them even more formidable. After making his decision, he smiled at Yinju and extended his hand. "Get up," he said gently. "I'll introduce you to some people." Shortly after, Han introduced himself to Yinju. She returned the greeting politely. Looking at him closely, she asked, "Are you the one who was throwing baseballs to hunt goblins?" Han's eyes widened in surprise. "How do you know that?" he stammered. Turning to the archer, Yinju added, "And you were shooting arrows at the goblins, weren't you?" The archer blinked in shock. "You recognize me?" she asked nervously. Yinju chuckled softly, mimicking claws with her hands and baring her teeth playfully. She growled, "You really don't recognize me?" Toy Han and the archer exchanged confused glances, unsure of what to make of her playful growling. Cute cartoon bears appeared in the background, emphasizing the oddness of the situation. Deciding to clarify, Yinju began to transform. Brown fur started to spread across her body as her snout elongated. Her bare form slowly became evident. The archer pointed at her in disbelief. "Wait, is this actually happening? You're the beast we saw in the alley earlier." Laughing awkwardly, Yinju corrected her. "I'm a bear, not a beast." The archer blinked, dumbfounded. Yinju explained that she had helped them deal with goblins before, though they hadn't realized it. Looking at the giant bear standing before him, Han shook his head and chuckled. "Our meeting wasn't a coincidence, after all," he remarked. Yinju nodded. "Anyone who opposes the goblins is a friend of mine." At that moment, Seo Jun entered the room, interrupting the conversation. "It's good that you're all acquainted already," he said with a serious expression. The group turned to him, sensing that he had something important to say. "I've thought it through," Seo Jun began. "We'll execute the plan to rescue Moon's grandmother tomorrow." The group listened intently as he explained. "The number of goblins has drastically decreased, making this the perfect opportunity for the mission. Fatty will sit this one out due to his injuries." "Oh, and Yinju will be joining us?" Yinju nervously thanked him for the opportunity. "It's a pleasure to meet you all," she said, bowing politely. Concluding the meeting, Seo Jun instructed everyone to prepare for the mission. The group, filled with determination, agreed without question. Afterward, Seo Jun called Toy and Moon aside for a private conversation. Standing under the full moon in the hallway, he asked, "Do you know why I called you here?" Both Toy and Moon exchanged startled glances, unsure of what he was referring to. Though, deep down, they had a feeling they might know. The two were caught off guard by the sudden question and visibly startled. Toy hesitated and admitted he wasn't sure, while Moon spoke up, asking if it had something to do with the powers they had recently acquired. Jun smirked sarcastically and replied, "Yes, it's about your powers." He went on to explain that both of them had awakened abilities, leaving them shocked at how perceptive their leader was. Ko Jun explained further, revealing that Moon's newly obtained ability was teleportation. This excited Moon, who was eager to learn how to use it. As for Toy, his ability was called Knight of Steel, which left him curious about what it could do. Jun's expression shifted to one of seriousness as he considered the situation. He realized he needed to understand how both of their abilities worked before they embarked on the mission the next day. Deep in thought, he opened the system screen to analyze their progress. He then issued a mission to both of them: demonstrate their newly awakened abilities within 1 hour. The reward for success was increased strength, while the penalty for failure was having to sleep in the corridor. The system confirmed the mission parameters, and Jun found himself intrigued by these team-oriented challenges. As Jun mulled over the situation, Toy, unable to contain his enthusiasm, called out, asking if it was true that he had awakened a new ability. Jun confirmed with a nod. Toy's excitement was palpable. Snorting with exhilaration, he exclaimed how great it was, but then quickly asked about the specifics of the Knight of Steel ability. Jun explained that it allowed Toy to summon a steel suit of armor and a halberd. Before Toy could ask further questions, since he was used to wielding a baseball bat, a blue light suddenly materialized beside him. The light was Moon's teleportation ability activating. In an instant, Moon vanished, leaving Toy stunned by how quickly he had picked up the skill. For a few seconds, Jun and Toy exchanged wide-eyed, speechless glances, both trying to process what had just happened. Moments later, Moon reappeared in the corridor, slightly wobbly as he landed. Looking down at his hands, his face lit up with excitement as he marveled at the functionality of his power. Clenching his fist, he declared, "With this power, rescuing my grandmother will be a breeze." The system notified Ko Jun that Moon's confidence had increased, along with a rise in his loyalty. Overcome with gratitude, Moon bowed deeply to Jun, thanking him for everything he was doing. The gesture took Jun by surprise. After a moment, Jun urged Moon to pause and carefully assess the situation. "Even though you've managed to use your powers," Jun explained, "going to your grandmother's house right now is impossible." Moon, puzzled, asked why that was the case. Jun patiently elaborated, "There's no guarantee you can fully control your ability. Even though it worked once, it's possible you just got lucky." His words caused Moon to lower his head in disappointment. realizing that rescuing his grandmother would have to wait. June reassured him, saying, "For now, we'll figure out the maximum range of your teleportation and determine if there's any penalty for using it multiple times." Moon nodded silently in agreement. As the conversation continued, they noticed something unusual happening down the corridor. Turning to investigate, they saw a knight clad in gleaming steel armor, wielding an enormous halberd. Toy's eyes widened in amazement as he realized the sheer magnitude of his power. Ecstatic, he couldn't help but comment on how well the ability suited him. The system then notified June that Toy's confidence and loyalty had also increased. Meanwhile, Toy celebrated by swinging the halberd to test its weight. June called Moon over, pointing toward a nearby building. He then asked, "Can you test your teleportation by attempting to reach it?" Moon studied the building carefully, gauging the distance and calculating the effort it would take to make such a leap on only his second try. Finally, he turned to his leader and said, "I'm not sure I can make it, but I'll try." The system presented a new mission: teleport to the rooftop of Building 113 within 3 minutes. The reward was an improvement to Moon's teleportation ability, while the penalty for failure was having to sleep outside. Focusing intensely, Moon positioned his hands in a stance resembling a Kamehameha, channeling his energy for teleportation. In the background, Toy cheered him on enthusiastically, offering words of encouragement and telling him he could do it. After aligning his thoughts and gathering his energy, Moon opened his eyes. In that instant, he vanished once again, enveloped by a burst of blue light. The force of his ability was so intense that Toy instinctively shielded himself from the shockwave. Moon reappeared on the rooftop of the other building, landing in a dramatic superhero pose. However, his face contorted in pain, and his eyes turned completely white. From his new vantage point, Moon felt a wave of relief, knowing that the teleportation had worked. Looking across at his friends, he waved to ensure they saw him and shouted that everything had gone as planned. The system notified June, confirming that Moon had successfully completed the mission. June let out a sigh of relief and smiled, praising Moon for his impressive and quick mastery of the ability. Moon, still waving happily, basked in the moment. But suddenly, without warning, his strength gave out. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed unconscious on the rooftop, leaving him vulnerable. Both June and Toy froze in shock, their previous excitement quickly replaced by concern. Everything had been going so well until it hadn't. Acting swiftly, June used his ability to summon a servant, bringing Moon's unconscious body back to their corridor. Moments later, they laid him down in one of the beds to let him recover. "Is he going to be okay?" Toy asked anxiously. June, studying the system's readout, reassured him. "Guess he's just unconscious. The teleportation ability took a lot out of him." He explained that with enough rest, Moon would be fine. The system confirmed that Moon was healthy and in a deep sleep. "This probably happened because he's not used to using the ability yet," June added. Relieved, Toy sighed. "Glad to hear it." June then shifted the focus. "Now it's your turn," he said, surprising Toy with the sudden declaration. "Wait, my turn?" Toy asked, caught off guard. The system displayed Toy's mission: perform 100 push-ups and 100 squats while wearing the steel armor. The time limit was 10 minutes. The reward was increased strength, while the penalty for failure was sleeping outside. Without hesitation, Toy began the exercises, starting with the push-ups. Clad in his heavy steel armor, every movement required an incredible amount of effort. Sweat poured down his face and dripped onto the floor as he pushed himself to the limit. Determined, he moved on to the squats, completing the second half of the mission with gritted teeth and unwavering resolve. When he finished, Toy stood tall, exhausted but triumphant, shouting, "Mission accomplished. I did it!" The system confirmed his success, notifying June that Kong Toy had completed the mission. Breathing heavily, Toy leaned against the wall to catch his breath while June observed him, impressed. With a body like his, so athletic and resilient, it's no wonder he has such endurance, June thought to himself. Suddenly, the system displayed a new message, something June had never seen before. "What's this?" June muttered, his eyes narrowing at the unexpected notification. As he studied the screen, Toy asked, "Is that really all for the mission?" June nodded, smiling warmly. "Yes, great job. You can go rest now." The system finished calculating and displayed a notification. Toy's strength had slightly increased. Turning to June, Toy expressed his gratitude. "Thanks for taking the time to help us. I really appreciate it." June, surprised by the sudden notification and watching Toy feel the changes in his body, noticed a new sense of energy radiating from him. Looking at his own hands, Toy clenched them into fists, feeling the power coursing through his veins. "This reward changes everything," he said with a confident smile. The next day, a dark alley in Busan Han screamed in desperation, urging everyone to run. The group scattered, fleeing for their lives as a ferocious horde of goblins pursued them. Toy, however, stopped running and turned around, his fury evident. Assessing the situation, he decided to act. The goblins, focused on their chase, were suddenly blinded by a brilliant light shining in front of them. As they adjusted their vision, they saw a towering figure, clad in a steel suit of armor, wielding a massive halberd. Without hesitation, Toy charged forward and struck the nearest goblin, impaling it in one swift, powerful motion. Then he unleashed a flurry of diagonal strikes in rapid succession, cutting down goblins one after another. But the goblins, fueled by rage, refused to give up. They surged forward, launching a determined attack. Expecting a direct assault, Toy braced himself, but the goblins cunningly outmaneuvered him, slipping past to target the more vulnerable backline. In an instant, arrows struck the goblins' heads in swift succession, ending their rampage permanently. Toy turned to see what had happened and spotted Moon, wielding a bow and arrow. "Don't worry," Moon called out confidently. "I'll handle any goblins that get past you. Focus on the ones ahead." Gripping his halberd tightly, Toy turned back to the remaining goblins. A smirk spread across his face as he responded, "Got it." Seeing Toy's renewed focus, the goblins hesitated. One by one, they began to retreat, turning back to where they came from. Frustrated, Toy yelled at them to come back and face him. As the goblins retreated, terror gripped them when a massive shadow appeared before them. It was the bear girl, her glowing red eyes piercing through the chaos. This was her dramatic first appearance, emerging from an ambush prepared for the retreating goblins. The goblins had no choice but to surrender to their fate, collapsing in despair and lamenting their past misdeeds. The group showed no mercy. Moon's arrows flew with precision, Toy's halberd struck powerfully, and the bear girl slashed through the goblins with her razor-sharp claws. Together, they defeated the goblins one by one. Seizing the opportunity, Han shouted to Moon, "Now's your chance. Go!" Moon, understanding the urgency, broke into a sprint toward his grandmother's house. "Thank you, Han," he called back as he ran, grateful for the opening created by his comrades. Meanwhile, the system notified June that the Citizen Moon had completed his mission. A pop-up appeared, stating that it was now evaluating the missions Moon had completed. Back in the comfort of his room, June sat with his Ultimate Eyes ability activated, observing the system screen while slurping on cup noodles. The system pinged again, declaring the evaluation complete and awarding him 132,133. The system chimed once more, confirming that Moon had completed all the missions available to him for the day. It also announced that it would begin evaluating the rewards for Moon's completed tasks. The assessment concluded instantly. Still savoring his noodles, June grinned and said, "All right, let's see what the reward is." The system congratulated him for hitting the jackpot. For those unfamiliar, it clarified that a jackpot is the maximum prize accumulated in games of chance, like slot machines or lotteries. Reading this, June froze momentarily, stunned. Paralyzed with anticipation, he stared at the screen, waiting to see what incredible reward the jackpot would bring. Still staring at the system notification, June remained frozen in shock, his cup noodles stuck in his throat as he tried to process what the jackpot could possibly be. Then, the system displayed the reward, a skill point granted as part of the jackpot. Upon reading this, June's lips curled into a satisfied smile. This was perfect. He could choose exactly where to use the point. Back on the streets, Moon sprinted toward his grandmother's house at an incredible speed, a faint blue aura trailing behind him. As he drew closer, exhaustion crept in, sweat dripping down his forehead. His mind raced with anxious thoughts. What if something had happened to her? Upon arrival, the house came into view, a small, simple home, completely unprotected against monster attacks. There were no barriers, no fortifications, just an ordinary house standing vulnerably amidst the chaos. Moon didn't hesitate. He rushed to the door and pushed it open, but a deep fear clawed at his chest. Frantically, he dashed through the house, checking every room as he called out, "Grandma, where are you?" Then, he reached the bedroom. His eyes widened in shock. There she was, lying on a futon mattress, peacefully asleep, far calmer than Moon had ever imagined she would be. Cautiously, he approached, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Grandma," he whispered, shaking her lightly, hoping for any sign of response. Slowly, her eyelids fluttered open. Her voice was faint and drowsy as she murmured, "Who is there?" She reached out, her frail fingers brushing against his hand. "Moon, is that you?" At that moment, a ninja must have been cutting onions nearby, because Moon's vision blurred as his chest tightened with overwhelming relief. Tears streamed down his face, his body trembling as he sobbed uncontrollably, overcome by the sheer joy that she was still alive. Unable to hold back, he threw his arms around her in a warm, desperate embrace, whispering apologies between his sobs. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm so sorry it took me so long to come back for you." Despite his tears, the old woman smiled kindly and patted his back. "You're such a brave and kind boy, Moon. I knew you would come for me." At that exact moment, a system notification appeared in front of Jun. Moon's loyalty has reached 100%. Moon was now officially registered as a vassal. Additionally, the number of available vassal slots had increased. Jun squinted at the system window in confusion. "Huh? What's this?" Apparently, reaching a certain level of trust unlocked an additional vassal slot. The system then displayed his current vassals. Choi Hyen, aka Fatty, level 20 Moon, level 30 Kong Daiku, aka Toy, level 25 scratching his chin. Jun was taken aback. "Wait, so I can level them up too?" Curious, he decided to check how much it would cost to upgrade Moon's level. He tapped the plus symbol next to Moon's name. A new notification popped up. Insufficient funds to level up. Then, another window appeared displaying the required amount. 100 million Korean wons needed to upgrade Vassal Moon to the next level. Jun's jaw nearly hit the floor. His hands clenched into fists. 100 million won? His face twisted in frustration as he rubbed his temples. That's insane. Just for one vassal? With a sigh, he ran a hand through his hair and lightly punched the table. "I'm sorry, Moon," he muttered under his breath. "I'll make it up to you by assigning you missions every single day." At that moment, a noise snapped Jun out of his thoughts. His senses went on high alert. The elevator was moving. His brow furrowed. Who the hell could that be? His comrades were still out in the streets, fighting goblins. Narrowing his eyes, he activated Ultimate Eyes. His pupils darkened as his vision extended, scanning the entire building. Two people stood outside one of the apartment doors, a man and a woman. The man carried a box on his shoulder, while the woman knocked on the door, asking if anyone was inside. Something felt off. Their expressions weren't exactly friendly, and the dark circles under their eyes hinted at exhaustion, or something more sinister. Jun immediately recognized the apartment. Inside was Fatty's wife. She hesitated, hearing the knocking and voices outside. Cautiously, she called out, "Who is it?" Assuming it was urgent, she made a quick decision and opened the door. Standing there was a young woman who greeted her with a bright smile. "Hello," she said cheerfully. "I'm Kim Dabin." Then, she gestured toward the man beside her. "And this is my younger brother, Kim Miho," she continued, mentioning that they lived in Unit 1701. Intrigued, Fatty's wife asked what brought them there. The girl sighed, explaining that she had only come because she desperately needed help, leaving Fatty's wife wondering what kind of help she could possibly need. Then, With a sudden burst of desperation, the girl blurted out, practically shouting, "Would it be possible for you to let me take a shower?" Fatty's wife was completely caught off guard. Her jaw dropped. Of all the things she had expected to hear, this was the absolute last. Still trying to process it, she blinked in disbelief and asked, "Did you really just ask to take a shower? And that's all you need?" The girl nodded eagerly. "Yes, that's all. I just want to shower." Relieved that the request wasn't anything too complicated, Fatty's wife let out a small chuckle and waved them inside. "Well, that's easy enough. Come in." The two entered, expressing their gratitude. The man, still carrying the box on his shoulder, also thanked her before asking where he should put it. Curious, Fatty's wife asked what was inside. As he placed it down on the floor, the girl, still grateful, explained, "It's just canned food and some miscellaneous supplies." The man opened the box, revealing various types of canned goods, exactly as she had said. Seeing this, Fatty's wife smiled and thanked them, mentioning that they really didn't have to go through all that trouble. The girl waved it off. "It's nothing really. If you think about it, I just walked into a stranger's house and made a pretty weird request." Just as she finished speaking, something caught her attention from the corner of her eye. She turned her head slightly, her gaze landing on a collection of bows lined up against the wall, alongside Toy's baseball bat. Curious, she couldn't help but ask, "Do these bows and that bat belong to the owner of this apartment?" Fatty's wife hadn't expected that question. Still, after a brief pause, she shook her head. "No, actually, these don't belong to the apartment's owner. The real owners live in another unit, but it's kind of a complicated situation to explain in just a few words." The girl nodded in understanding. "I see." Watching everything unfold, Jun deactivated his ability and thought to himself that, so far, they didn't seem like bad people. He then shifted his gaze toward the window and murmured, "I'll go check it out later." After a brief moment of thought, he added, "I also need to talk to them. I want to ask if they'd be willing to help rescue other survivors from the nearby apartments." Before he could dwell on it further, a sudden system notification popped up. Jun blinked in surprise as the message appeared before him. "You have successfully hunted a red tiger." A second notification followed immediately after. "You have gained a large amount of XP." Then another. 39,718,318 EXP gained. Some abilities have reached their limit. Despite the strain, the battlefield outside was far from calm. Han the archer and the guy with glasses were both lightly wounded. In front of them, the corpse of a massive red tiger lay motionless on the ground. Next to it, the werbear was also severely injured, struggling to move. The rest of the group stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Jun observed everything, but a strange feeling crept up on him. His stomach twisted, and his chest tightened as a wave of unease washed over him. What the hell just happened? Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his body. His muscles spasmed, cold sweat dripping down his face as an overwhelming pressure gripped his chest. He groaned in agony, barely able to keep himself upright. Then, the system sent another notification. "You have discovered individuals who are eligible to receive citizenship." Jun barely managed to process the message. There were still people who weren't citizens yet. His breathing was ragged, but he forced himself to speak. "System, grant them citizenship." A new notification appeared instantly. A list of names flashed across the screen. "Citizenship has been granted." Then, another alert followed. "You have officially reached 50 citizens." An additional message appeared right after. "The amount of XP and money that citizens can earn has increased by 100%. But the surprises didn't stop there. A final notification popped up, revealing something unexpected. As the number of citizens has reached a specific threshold, all citizens have unlocked a new ability: Power of Trust. Jun stared at the words, his mind racing. Power of Trust? What does that even mean? Despite his lingering confusion, his thoughts drifted back to the battlefield. He clenched his jaw. Did anyone get seriously hurt? Back on the streets, Moon was slightly injured and gasping for breath, making a tremendous effort as he carried his grandmother on his back. Everyone else was wounded as well, running desperately while providing cover for Toy, who was carrying the injured Werbear woman. Observing this, June quickly realized that the situation outside was far worse than he had imagined. And of all people to be seriously hurt, it had to be the Werbear. As the group raced to escape, a horde of goblins suddenly appeared right in front of the two carrying the wounded. The team members covering them from behind immediately let loose a volley of arrows, striking down goblins to clear a path. The archer, watching closely, was startled by the precision of the man with glasses. "How the hell did you pull that off with a single shot?" she asked, eyes wide. The man looked just as confused. "I honestly have no idea." As they continued running, the archer suddenly realized something. "For some reason, my body feels lighter." Han, running beside her, nodded in agreement. "Yeah, and I just noticed I'm not even out of breath anymore." Meanwhile, back with June, the system finally provided an explanation. The ability Power of Trust is a passive skill that increases all stats by X%, where X equals the trust level of each citizen. June stared at the message in disbelief. This skill didn't even exist before. How the hell is it so strong? Then, another realization hit him. Every single member of his group had at least 50 trust points or more. That meant all their stats, including stamina, strength, reflexes, and more, had naturally increased by 50%. At that very moment, Moon's expression shifted, as if something suddenly clicked in his mind. He had a hunch. This must be another one of June's new abilities. The system then notified June of something else. Both of the girls have now surpassed 30 loyalty points. As a result, they are now eligible to be registered as vassals. Without hesitation, June immediately commanded the system to register both of them. The moment it happened, the two women suddenly stopped in their tracks, their bodies tingling as an overwhelming power surged through them. The system followed up with an update. Kim Gang, now at level 20, has acquired the ability Piercing. Yuyan, now at level 25, has awakened the skill Poisonous Mist, now brimming with newfound power. The two turned back, ready to face the goblins chasing them. The archer steadied herself, drawing her bow. She fired an arrow straight at the goblins. Normally, her shots always landed as headshots every single time. But this time, something was different. The arrow didn't just pierce through one goblin. It ricocheted off and struck several others, piercing through them effortlessly. Confused, the archer furrowed her brows. "What the hell? What just happened?" The system promptly provided an answer. The ability Piercing is a Tier S skill that uses mental strength to fire a penetrating arrow. June, standing with his arms crossed, watched as the information unfolded before him. Now that he knew what the ability was, he immediately issued a command to the system. "Create a mission." A new quest popped up. Mission: the archer must use Piercing to hunt 10 goblins within a 10-minute time limit. Reward: increased Piercing proficiency. Penalty for failure: fatigue. As he processed this, June shifted his attention to the other ability. Unlike Piercing, this one seemed far trickier. Poisonous Mist was a deadly attack, and while it was classified as a B-rank skill, using it incorrectly could endanger the entire team. June exhaled sharply, deciding to deal with it later. "I'll figure it out when the time comes." Just then, the system sent another notification. The archer has successfully completed the mission. 10 goblins eliminated. A new message followed. The maximum number of missions available for today has been reached. Evaluating the rewards, June sighed, unimpressed. The rewards weren't that great this time, but now that the battle outside had settled, he decided it was time to check on the citizens living on the lower floors. Activating Ultimate Eyes, he scanned the corridors. His gaze locked onto the silhouette of a man walking calmly through the halls, his hands tucked into his pockets. June watched as the man headed toward the bathroom, likely to collect water. Smart. June noted that this man had good survival instincts. He was gathering water before supplies ran low. Shifting his focus elsewhere, June spotted another pair, a man and a woman sitting together, preparing to eat. He observed them for a moment, realizing something important. They're already capable of gathering food and water on their own. Then in another part of the building, something unexpected caught his eye. A woman. She was lying motionless on the floor inside a room. Without a second thought, June bolted toward her. The system immediately provided an update. Kim De-young, trust level, 18 ability. Healing, awakened. June's heart pounded in his chest. Healing? His eyes darted between the system message and the unconscious woman on the floor. He quickly read the ability description. She can heal wounds. A surge of urgency flooded through him. She was the first healer they had found, and they desperately needed her. Without hesitation, June sprinted forward. He had to help her, no matter what. After sprinting through the hallways, June finally arrives in front of the door to the room where the woman had collapsed. His breathing is still heavy from the run, but he quickly composes himself and reaches for the doorknob. Slowly, he tries to turn it, hoping to gain access without any trouble. However, to his surprise, the door is locked from the inside. A deep frown settles on his face as he realizes there is no way for him to open it from the outside. The sudden obstacle causes his shoulders to slump slightly, and he takes a step back, frustration creeping into his thoughts. But just as he starts to contemplate another course of action, something unexpected happens. His eyes widen momentarily as a new notification from the system appears before him. By sheer coincidence, or perhaps fate itself, he has just acquired a new skill. The system promptly displays its details. The ability is called Invisible Hand, and it is currently at level 1. According to the description, it allows him to summon and control an invisible hand at will. Reading the notification, a surge of newfound determination fills his chest. His grip tightens into fists as he mentally acknowledges the absurd yet undeniable reality of his newfound power. Silently, he expresses his gratitude for this sudden stroke of fortune. Closing his eyes for a brief moment, June focuses his thoughts entirely on the locked door before him. He visualizes himself breaking the lock, willing it to yield under his command. When he finally opens his eyes, he is met with an unexpected yet welcome sight. Right before him, materialized out of sheer energy, is a lock-breaking tool, a sturdy bolt cutter formed entirely of the same strange energy he has come to rely on. Without hesitation, he reaches forward, taking hold of the newly formed tool. The cold sensation of the manifested object in his grip confirms its existence. Without wasting another second, he positions it against the lock and applies pressure. A sharp snap echoes through the quiet hallway as the lock gives way effortlessly. With a swift motion, he pushes the door open and rushes inside. The moment he steps into the dimly lit room, his gaze immediately lands on the unmoving woman lying on the floor. Now that he is seeing her up close, the eerie stillness of her body makes the entire scene feel unsettling. June quickly kneels beside her, concern evident in his expression. Reaching out, he gently nudges her shoulder, his voice calm yet firm as he speaks. He asks if she can hear him, if she is all right, urging her to wake up. There is no response. A deep sense of unease washes over him as he carefully observes her condition, scanning for any visible injuries. But what he notices instead sends a wave of worry through him. Her face is unnaturally pale, her lips dry and cracked. Severe dehydration. His mind races. Dehydration this extreme could be dangerous. She needs help immediately. He quickly shifts his attention to the surroundings, searching for anything that might assist in stabilizing her condition. His eyes dart around the room, taking in every detail. Then, something catches his attention, something that makes him pause, confusion flickering across his face. There is water in the room, yet, despite its presence, she is still in this critical state. It makes no sense. The contradiction unsettles him, sending a cold shiver down his spine. Glancing back at the woman, he forces himself to push aside the troubling thoughts. Now is not the time to question the situation. The priority right now is saving her. A sudden idea forms in his mind. Without hesitation, he opens the system interface. There is a chance this might work. June quickly assigns her a mission, a simple yet crucial task. Mission objective: breathe. Reward: immediate recovery from dehydration. The system processes the command, deducting 10.1 as the cost for activating the mission. Almost instantly, a soft blue aura begins to envelop the woman's body. June watches intently, his pulse quickening as the energy works through her. Then, faint sounds escape her lips, a weak, breathy noise, but a clear sign that she is beginning to stir. Relief floods through him. It worked. Slowly, her eyelids flutter open, her gaze hazy and unfocused. A blurred silhouette of a figure stands before her, a voice reaching her ears, asking if she is awake. Her mind struggles to process the situation. Her voice, weak but laced with confusion, manages to form a question. Who is he, and why is he in her room? June straightens slightly, meeting her dazed gaze. He introduces himself, explaining that he lives in the unit just above hers in the building. She blinks, her expression still foggy with exhaustion. The information doesn't seem to register right away. Still lying on the floor, she questions him again, her voice laced with uncertainty. How did he get inside? June, seeing no reason to hide the truth, states it plainly. He tells her that he saw she was unwell and decided to enter by force, breaking the door open to reach her. A moment of silence lingers between them. Then, her breath hitches. Her expression shifts as realization dawns. Without warning, tears begin streaming down her face, and yet she does not say a word. She simply cries, as if the weight of everything she had been enduring had finally caught up with her. She raises her hands to her face, wiping away the tears in an attempt to hide her crying. Her shoulders tremble slightly as she struggles to compose herself. June, watching her closely, immediately senses that something is wrong. There is an uneasiness in the way she reacts, something beyond just exhaustion or confusion. Taking a deep breath, he calls her name, Kim De-young. His voice is firm yet gentle. As she slowly pushes herself up from the floor, still visibly shaken, he speaks again. He apologizes for being so abrupt, for barging into her life so suddenly. But he makes it clear he needs her help. There is urgency in his tone, something that makes her pause despite her lingering distress. Now sitting upright, her tear-filled eyes meet his. Though her expression remains guarded, her lips, still cracked from dehydration, barely part as she listens to him speak. June wastes no time in explaining. One of his allies is severely injured. The words seem to take a moment to register. De-young slowly turns her body toward him, staring as if trying to process what he just said. Silence stretches between them. She blinks, her mind racing, trying to make sense of his words. His ally? Someone severely injured? Why is he telling her this? She doesn't understand. She doesn't even know this man. Panic begins to rise in her chest. He wants her to save someone. Why her? Doubt and fear intertwine within her thoughts. Her hands tremble slightly as she lowers them to her lap. It seems impossible, an absurd request thrown at her out of nowhere. He's putting his faith in the wrong person. And then another realization strikes her like a bolt of lightning. How does he know I'm a nurse? Her breath catches. She has never told him that. No one in this building should even know. A wave of unease washes over her. And yet, at the same time, something about the way he speaks, the way he asks for help, doesn't feel threatening. There is no malice in his words, no ill intent in his eyes. Still hesitant, still uncertain, she makes a decision. She has to see for herself. Slowly, she turns to face him completely. Though suspicion lingers in her gaze, she swallows down her doubts and agrees to help. Her voice, though weak, carries a firm resolve as she asks where exactly she is supposed to go. June doesn't answer right away. Instead, he opens the system interface, his fingers moving swiftly across the translucent screen in front of him. He asks her to wait just a moment. He assigns her a mission, one that instructs her to use healing magic to cure the wounded Werbear. The mission comes with a 1-hour time limit, a reward labeled as improved, and, to his relief, no penalties. His eyes flicker with determination as he reads the details. He must save the Werbear, no matter what. Turning back to De-young, he tells her that, for now, she should rest. He will personally bring the injured person to her. He then instructs her to find something to help with her own dehydration. But De Jong, already overwhelmed, barely has time to process his words before something utterly impossible happens. From seemingly nowhere, oranges begin to materialize in midair. Her eyes widen in pure shock, her breath hitching as she watches several bright oranges fall from the void and land in front of her. For a long moment, she simply stares, her mouth slightly open, completely stunned. Then, snapping out of her daze, she frantically raises a shaking finger, pointing at the fruit on the floor. "What is this?" Her voice trembles as she demands an answer. June, realizing how bizarre this must seem to her, quickly apologizes. But De Jong isn't satisfied. Her heartbeat pounds in her ears as she watches more oranges drop into existence. Where are these coming from? How is this happening? What kind of person is this man? Before she can demand further explanations, June simply turns his back to her. A slight smirk plays on his lips as he tells her he'll explain everything later, once things have calmed down. And with that, he walks away, leaving her still kneeling on the floor, still staring in disbelief. As he exits the room, he gives her one final request. He reminds her that she is still weak, that her body needs to recover, and he insists that she prioritize her own rest. As soon as June is gone, De Jong lowers her gaze to the scattered oranges. Slowly, she reaches out, picking one up. The texture, the weight, the coolness against her fingertips, it all feels real. She squeezes the fruit gently, expecting it to vanish like an illusion, but it remains solid in her grasp. A shiver runs down her spine. What is this? Still overwhelmed, she hesitantly mutters to herself, wondering if she's dreaming, because never in her life has she seen anything like this before. Meanwhile, June wastes no time. He rushes back to his shut-in apartment, moving with quick, determined strides. His mind is already focused on helping his allies outside as fast as possible. The system chimes with a notification. The healer's trust level has increased. He stops for a brief moment, narrowing his eyes at the message. She hadn't trusted him before. That much was obvious. But now, it seems like her perception of him has changed, even if only slightly. Still, it isn't enough for him to let his guard down. Trust takes time, and honestly, he can't blame her. If someone broke into his home out of nowhere, he wouldn't trust them either. Shaking his head, he steps onto the balcony, his gaze drifting downward. His thoughts remain heavy, but as he looks out toward the streets below, something makes his entire body freeze. His blood runs cold. A massive, ferocious red tiger is charging through the streets. Its powerful limbs propel it forward with terrifying speed, and it's chasing his allies. June's breath catches as he sees his companions below, running for their lives. Desperation is evident in the way they scramble to escape, but the monstrous beast is closing in on them, its deadly fangs gleaming under the dim light. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, its piercing eyes lock onto its targets, its muscular body moving in perfect synchrony as it hunts his team. A wave of panic washes over June. This isn't just a dangerous situation. This is a massacre waiting to happen.